See if it started. Okay, I think it started. Hello, and welcome to the Board with Life Top 10 Games of 2015 list. I'm Chris.
I'm Donald,
Yeah, you'll know us
Yeah.
from the thing you're watching.
reporting live from Board with Life Studios in sunny Dallas, Texas.
All right, so I think we did this last year as well, where we just did kind of a lo-fi hangout thing instead of like a nice polished video, because we generally take December off. And we've had really busy years, so this is just going to be, I don't know, probably like an hour of us talking about our favorite games, their top 10 favorite games that came out in 2015. But it's going to be a little bit weird, whereas last year we did like a compiled list where we all kind of put in votes, so it was like, the cumulative Board with Life members, their favorite games. This year, Donald has had a busy year, so this is literally just going to be my top 10 list, and I'm going to talk about it, and he's going to disagree with some shit, and that's going to be it.
Yeah, Nikki and I last year contributed more, but this year we played so few games, neither of us felt comfortable necessarily even approaching a top 10 list. We had a baby this year. Nikki's actually in the other room breastfeeding her. For some reason, she never did that on camera. So this list will be a little bit more just a conversation, I guess. Think of it that way. And if you don't like any of the picks, this is Chris's favorite games, not Board with Life's best games of 2015. He didn't play every game. We don't get a bunch of free games. And that is a lot of caveats. So
this is and they're different things. These are my favorite games of 2015, which means the games that I had kind of the most fun playing, not the games that I think are the best, because I think that there are some games that are maybe more important to the hobby or more innovative or things like that. And that would be a different list, and I'm not doing that list. So these are just my favorite games, my opinion of my favorite games. I have a list of 30 games that I didn't get to play this year, that came out this year, that I wanted to play. A notable one on that is Pandemic Legacy. I haven't played Pandemic Legacy, so it will not appear on my list.
I've not played that either.
Yeah, so I know that that's the general kind of game of the year on most people's lists. It's not going to be on mine because I haven't played it, obviously. And literally, I have a list of 30 games that I really, really wanted to get to play. I didn't get to play. I played about 50 of the games that came out this year, which is a lot, but also hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games came out this year, so it's not that many. And yeah, also we're not a review site, so this is just my list. I'm happy to do it, whatever. Okay, that seems like enough. Let's move on to it. Sound good?
Yeah. No bitching, and we're probably gonna swear.
Yeah,
because it's just freeform, baby.
Yeah.
Hey Chris.
What's up?
Ready to throw a curveball at you. Ready? What is your top 2014 game of 2015?
Oh,
we did not prepare this at all. I just thought of it because I was looking up a game I loved and found it was 2014. So this is your favorite game from 2014 that you didn't play until 2015.
I didn't play until 2015, huh?
I'll let you think, and I'll go ahead and talk about mine. Mine is, I just looked this up, and I wasn't sure what year it came out. I didn't play it till 2015, but we're talking about Witness from Atari Games and Asmodee. Witness is a game designed by Dominique Bowden. It is a very unique, sort of quirky, weird game. You can only play it with 4 players, and basically it has cool, like Tintin-looking art, and involves solving sort of ludicrously simple and yet also ludicrously complicated mysteries by playing a shitty game of telephone. And I have gotten a lot of laughs out of it. I think it looks really cool, and I think it is like every once in a while a game comes out where it almost feels like it was designed by a person who hasn't played all the other popular games, and so they just go like, I have this other weird idea for what a game could be, and you go like, oh, so we all get like a book? Like this is your idea for a board game, is we all get a book and like a notepad and a pencil? We have to like take notes on what a person whispered to us. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to play that yet, and I still really want to a lot.
Pretty cool.
This probably isn't the actual answer, but on quick guessing, I'm going to say Imperial Assault. I think that came out in 2014. Didn't come out in 2015. I'm pretty sure it did. And I've had a lot of fun with that game, and I generally don't like, it's not that I don't like, it's just I'm generally not as drawn to play highly thematic or Ameritrash games or whatever. But I think they did a really good job. It was always a lot of fun. It seemed very well balanced, which is crazy because it's really complex. I've read some things online where people go, it's not well balanced, but I don't care. It's because you're min-maxing or whatever. So yeah, I like that game a whole lot. I had a lot of fun playing it. I did never get to finish my campaign, but I've always kind of wanted to, but it's just hard to go like, we're gonna play games once a week and it's always gonna be this game when there's so many other games.
I have not played that game, and I'll admit, by the way, I just looked it up on BGG, and it is indeed a 2014 release as far as they're concerned. That's, I think, the metric I'm using. That game, funny story, Chris and I were at the sort of press conference at Gen Con when they announced that game, and they had just got done talking about so much licensed Star Wars stuff already that by the time they're like, and now Descent, but Star Wars, I literally, like, it's one of those things where you have an irrational sort of like, fuck that game response to something where I just was like, oh cool, we're just writing Star Wars on everything now, neat. But it turns out that game's supposed to be great, and I would love to play it.
All right, let's get into the top 10. This year was, I don't know if I played more games this year or what, but this was a way harder year than last year. Last year we only did a top 5, and I felt pretty okay with that, where like the stuff outside of the top 5, I was like, it's good, but not great. I mean, there were like legitimately like 25 games that when I was just going down my list, I was like, oh yeah, that'll be in the top 10. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I did that with like 25 games. And some of them I can't believe didn't make my list. Stuff like Lanterns, Cacao, Discoveries, and then we held hands. Broom Service, Arboretum, Seven Wonders Duel, Spectre Ops, The Gallerist, Argent Consortium, Nippon, Sapiens, Time Stories, Flick 'em Up, and Bottom of the Ninth. All I would have assumed would have made my top 10, but when I did it, they didn't because there were only 10 spots. That being said, my number 10 game, or Board with Life, but mine, of 2015 is Gold West.
Yeah,
that Gold West.
Yeah.
We got to play this a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, a prototype
long
of it.
Time ago. When Board with Life first started, baby.
And we had a great time with it. Then I got to play the like production copy of it this year, where the prototype I think was almost virtually identical. And Tasty Minstrel did an incredible job. The components are great. I don't know the pieces. I don't know if they use like a different kind of paint on the meeples or what, but they're just like nicer seeming. Which is a weird thing. Like the wood components are just lovely. It's like chalk paint instead of like normal paint. I don't know. But it's a really good kind of mid-weight Euro game. It uses a Mancala mechanic very simply but very well. Donald is throwing a computer, and it's really good, and it looks lovely on the table. Like the artwork is very correct. It's not showy, but it's just everything is nice. Everything's nice about it. I had a really good time playing it.
So I didn't know this was on Chris's list, but this is the copy of Gold West we got at BGG Con, the first one that we went to. They asked us to come play test it. We liked it a lot, and they gave us a signed copy of the prototype. I believe it's the first like official prototype, and we got it with like nice like misprints and like errors in it and stuff. So the game holds a special place in my heart, and I've been playing it for so long, I forgot it came out this year. So yeah. Cool dark horse pick, Chris.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just thought of a thing too. I want you right now to guess in the order what my top 3 games are going to be in 3, 2, and 1 order.
Did Orléans come out in 2015?
Orléans Deluxe did come out in 2015.
Okay.
Also, all the games on my list.
Are we counting deluxe versions of games?
I am counting American distribution releases where you had to import it previous to that. So there are games like, for example, Dr. Eureka that I liked a lot, but it's not out in America yet, so that can't make my list. So yes, because it came out in the States in 2015, it is eligible for my list.
This is interesting. I'm going to say Orléans is your number 1. I'm going to say that is a lock. I'm going to go ahead and say Blood Rage for number 3. And I'm going to say for number 2, let's go ahead and say Codenames just to spite me.
Okay.
We'll see how well I did.
All right, we'll see. Okay, so number 9 is Ashes: Rise of the Phoenixborn. This is a LCG or expandable card game or whatever the like non-Fantasy Flight owned collectible but not collectible card game label is, from Plaid Hat Games.
That word you're looking for is crack cocaine.
Yeah, that sweet crack. And it would be higher on my list if it wasn't for the fact that these games are entirely, the fun of them is entirely being a part of a community. And not that there's not a community, it's just I don't have time to be a part of it. It added in, it's very, you know, similar to Magic the Gathering or kind of any of those, but it added in dice in a very, very cool way that I like a whole lot. And I am a sucker for dice being used well in games. So I think the artwork's great. I think the pre-built decks were really good and balanced and interesting. Lots of interesting decisions already. And I'm very excited to kind of see where this game goes. I wish I could play it more, but I haven't gotten a ton of chances to play it. But I very much like it. And I think you, Donald, should get into it so you and Nikki can play it.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about. I have found that I don't. It's funny. I felt one of the rudest moments I've had in a long time, I felt like, was when Isaac and Colby were like, "Here, you guys want a copy?" And I was like, "No, I won't play it." I felt like a dick. But I've played the game, and I like it a lot. I think if I was gonna get into an LCG, it would probably be that. That said, Nikki and I have tried Netrunner. We played quite a bit of Summoner Wars, but I think when Nikki and I sit down to play a 2-player game, we usually gravitate towards playing the lighter ones. For some reason, when I'm at home in my pajamas playing just a 2-player game, I don't want to play something heavy. Now, if it's like with 4 people, for some reason, I feel a lot better about playing like a highly competitive game. But like with 2 people, I often just feel like just this aversion, you know what I mean? It's like the documentaries on your Netflix instant queue where you're just like, oh, one day I'll watch that, but instead I'm going to watch this stupid horror movie. Yeah. That's kind of my attitude about those. So I just, at the time, just didn't want them to waste their money.
Yeah.
But it's a cool game, and I like that being on our list. It feels fresh in a thing that in a subgenre of games that you would think would maybe start to stop feeling fresh, if that makes any sense.
It's also the most tension you can have in passing your turn in a game. It does this great thing where you kind of play in rounds, and it's over when both people pass their main action. You have a main action and a side action. But there's that thing where you're kind of like waiting for your opponent to do a thing for you to do a thing. So there's like high stakes in passing. And I love that in games, and it does it very well.
There's also, they get a lot of like possible actions out of a very small set of there's a lot you can do on your turn, and it's pretty neat how much mileage they get out of some dice and some cards.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's cool. That's a great game.
All right, number 8 on the list.
Also, pretty ass box. Very pretty box. Every time I see it, I go, ooh, every single time.
I've got it behind me. And I'll pull it out while I'm saying number 8, if I can reach it.
Look how pretty that is.
And I love the sides with the different characters. You can kind of pick which one you're going to display.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so number 8 on the list. This game came out of nowhere for me at Gen Con. I had never heard of it. And Rodney from Watch It Played, we ran into him eating dinner, and we were like, so what are you excited about? And he said this one, and we were blown away by it. I feel like that was kind of the trend for all of Gen Con, and it is the Grizzled from Cool Mini or Not. This is a cooperative game about World War I, and it's not really so much about warfare as it is about kind of how awful it is to be in war and being in trenches and being scared and being sick and trying to support your comrades so that you don't just die from the world sucking, basically.
Yeah.
It also, the art in it is done by an artist that was killed in the Charlie Hebdo attacks in France. So that kind of adds to the gravity of it. All of the characters in the game are actual people that were in World War I. And it's not a fun game, right? It's not, the experience isn't necessarily fun. It's a very punishing game. It's very, very difficult to win. And it's just good. It's very simple. It's light, but like everything fits to make you feel a certain way, which is a thing a lot of games do. But the way that they try to make you feel is almost always happy and enjoying it and having fun. This one, its goal is not that, and it achieved it, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's one of those games that is, when people talk about like supporting new ideas and stuff and themes in the hobby, a lot of times people seem to confuse that for, I'm going to move to another room because my baby is angry. This is a little walk and talk West Wing style. But you know, a lot of people seem to confuse that with like, oh, I want a worker placement game about, you know, putting dock workers on a mushroom patch, or just some like weird variation on a theme. But something that's cool about the Grizzled is it actually communicates new ideas and feelings. And, you know, we sometimes talk about board games as art. And I think Chris and I both believe board games are art, just as a general sense. It's a thing people make to express an idea. But the Grizzled comes a little closer to saying something I don't hear a lot from games. And a board game, I've talked about this before, I think, but board games have a weird relationship with war in the first place, where, you know, one of the older, biggest, most, you know, like established forms of board game are like war games. And, you know, as we move towards people who are maybe thinking a little harder about what sort of things our media says about our culture, it's interesting to see a game take a different look at war, other than like, it's kind of glorious and rad, right? It feels good to crush people, right? It's cool. I like it a lot. I think the game itself is like not as interesting as the sum of its parts. Like each individual part isn't that interesting, but the sum of its parts is something that felt really fresh at the time. And I'm glad to have it in my collection because I can like show it to my dad and go like, this is pretty cool, right? And he'll go, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It's almost like this is kind of a weird analogy, but it's almost, the Grizzled's almost like a really good punk song as opposed to like classical music, where going like, both of these are good. Like punk is like so simple. It is just so by the book, but it's energy and everything goes together to convey an emotion better than a lot of more complicated songs. And if they were more complicated, they wouldn't do that. Right. Whereas, you know, classical music, you can also give an experience and that kind of stuff, but it affects people in a different way, a less visceral way. I think Grizzled wins our award for most hip hop game of 2015. Yeah, that's the Tupac Shakur.
The Tupac Shakur honorary award for most hip hop game of 2015.
Rest in peace, Spook. So number 7 is, I don't know why I called Tupac my boo.
He is.
So number 7 is, I think, the funniest game of the year, and that is Spyfall.
Yeah.
This game is great. It's the kind of game that you bust it out, and then, I mean, we played it the weekend we shot with Rich Summer, and he was in town. I think we just played it like 20 times in a row. It was just like from 10 p.m. to like 2 a.m. We just played it over and over and over and over. We're a sucker for games that fit a bunch of players, because we have a bunch of people in our group. And it is a game that in and of itself isn't funny, but it allows people to be funny. And so, you know, of course, like Cards Against Humanity is like the funny card game, but it's not that you're funny. It's that the game itself has funny things written on it, and you then get kind of credit for doing that. It's like, didn't I tell a good joke when I handed this thing to you?
It's like Mad Libs or a joke book, rather than like giving people an opportunity to be funny.
Right. And so,
which is fine. I'm not trying to get into it with people about them. Yeah. Save your comments.
Yeah. But Spyfall is kind of creates a wonderful construct in which a lot of humor happens and you're kind of in control of it, where Spyfall, basically everyone is, I don't know, one person's a spy, and everyone's, I guess, reminiscing about this time they had together that the spy should have been there, but the spy wasn't there. So everyone's dealt a location, and it's just cards, and so it says the nightclub. Everyone gets dealt the same location, so everyone's in the nightclub, except the spy just gets an X. He has no idea, or she has no idea where they are. And so all the game is there's a time limit, and you ask one other person a question about where you are. And the question, if it's good, should indicate to the other person that you know that you're in the nightclub. And the answer, if it's good, should indicate to me and the rest of the group that you know we're in the nightclub. But neither one should be so good that they give the spy enough information to figure out where you are. You wouldn't want to go like, what sort of dancing do you do here? And the person goes like, disco, because then the spy will immediately be like, we're in the nightclub, and they win. So you kind of want to be like, what's the odor around this place like? It's like, oh, musty or sweaty or sexy or whatever. I don't know. Clearly, I'm very good at the game. But
you can also, it can get also even more complicated because you can ask people questions in an effort to see if they give you the negative of the question you're looking for. But that can mislead people at the table. Like a good way to suss someone out is to go like, did you bring a lot of whatever to this place? And that answer, like, and the answer to that question should be no. You know what I mean? Like if we're in the nightclub and I say like, you know, so did you bring your own bread or something? Right. Like, that person goes like, no, that would be insane. You really know that person's on the up and up because it would be easy to mislead them. But now everybody else at the table is like, bread? What the hell is this guy talking about?
Right. So it's really good dynamics. It is quick and that doesn't overstay its welcome. I think the timer is 8 minutes for a normal game. I can't remember. And it's very tense when you're the spy and you have no clue where you are. And somebody asks you if you brought your own bread and having to answer that one way or another and then also ask someone a question. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. Lots of laughs. Really good game with just the simplest of ideas, you know?
Now, before anybody yells at you about it, Chris, I'm finding in the on Board Game Geek, they're calling that a 2014 game.
I don't know anybody that had that game in 2014.
You might be right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but before anybody starts, it doesn't matter. This isn't for money. Don't freak out about it. That's our 2014 game of 2015.
There's another game on my list that came out. I mean, it was at Board Game Geek in 2014, but I think it didn't come out like at stores until 2015. It's listed at 2014, but Tom Bassel put it on his top 10 of 2015, so I'm doing it. I don't care.
Yeah, if he can do it, then you can do it.
Yeah, and we didn't have it on ours last year. It's one of those games that like technically came out at like Essen or whatever, but never made it anywhere other than Essen until 2015. So, you know.
Party games are weird because our group loves party games, but party games always come with all these caveats. Like it almost feels like there's almost no game that's more specific to the group. Spyfall is great, I think, pretty universally liked. There's even a pretty good app where you can play it on your phone, I believe. But there are certain people for whom this game will just not work because it involves sort of being put on the spot. And there were certain people who being put on the spot is a thing they hate about party games. So if you're that type of person, that can suck. But man, our group loves people staring at us, so we have a blast with that one.
All right, number 6, right? 6? Yep. I don't think you've played this one. Is Isle of Skye.
Nope.
Isle of Skye is a
sounds like trash.
Yeah, it is a trash game. It is a tile placement game that is interesting. You're working on your own tableau, so it's not like Carcassonne or most tile laying games where you're collectively building a place. You're only building your own. And it's very, very simple. The best parts of it are, one, it has this auction mechanic that is an auction mechanic but doesn't require an auction, so it's much faster, where you draw, I believe it's 4 tiles. You secretly pick behind your screen how much each tile is going to cost, and 1 tile that will get discarded, so nobody gets it. Which means if you want, okay, so you pick the cost of each of the tiles, and you reveal, then you go around and you take turns purchasing tiles from each other. If nobody purchases your tiles, you get that tile, but you have to pay the cost that you had assigned to it. So it's this thing where you're like, I know you really want this tile really bad, but I don't want it. But how much money can I charge you for it? Because I get the money if you buy it from me. So it's like right on the edge. You're like, I really need this tile. So you make it really expensive, or nobody's going to want this tile, but I don't want it. So it's cheap. So it's really good. And it really speeds up an auction because everybody just kind of assigns it, and then you have the stuff in front of you and you get to decide if you buy it or not. Another really good aspect is it has all sorts of scoring conditions, and they get randomly dealt out. So you'll only use, I don't know, like a quarter of all the possible ways to score in a given game. So it has tons of replay value. And they only score.
I'll only use quarters to track the score.
Yes, you have to pay 1/4 of the score in order to get the track that allows you to go forward.
Game sounds expensive.
Yeah. And so you only score each one of them in 3 out of the 6 rounds, but there'll be rounds that score multiple ones. So it's like, in this round, I care a lot about this, but I don't care about these things. But in the next round, I'll care about them. So sometimes you like play a long game where you care about the ones that will happen way later and don't care about the ones early. So there's a lot of like little sprints in the game to like be the person who has the most enclosed lakes, or be the person who has the longest road, or be the person who has the most sheep. But those only matter some of the time. So that's really cool. It's very simple and it's very familiar, but feels very fresh. I like it a lot.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
That auction mechanic actually sounds super rad, because I often have a weird aversion to auction mechanics. Like my brain almost always goes like, but I don't know. The first time I play it, it's like, but I don't know what these things are worth. So I don't. This game already has me on my heels. That sounds like a little cooler, because it's just kind of like what it's worth to me versus what it's worth to you in like a more real sense.
And
it's
one of those.
Much time just doing rounds.
It's very similar to kind of what Castles of Mad King Ludwig did with its auction, where you just assign values, and like you're like, you really want that, so it's really expensive, or I really want this, so it's just expensive enough for nobody else to buy it. And it just kind of speeds up that whole part, where if you're not playing like exclusively an auction game, it can really slow things down each round. But Isle of Skye is, more than any other game I played this year, one of those things where both its auction mechanic and its scoring mechanic, I immediately went like, every time I'm designing a new game now, both of those things are in my head in how I can use them in the game. So it did a thing where I'm like, that was really smart. I'm going to steal it. Which is good. All right. Number 5. Now we're into the top 5 territory. Is Mysterium.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about Mysterium? You want me to talk about Mysterium?
I'll talk about Mysterium. Mysterium is a lovely game designed by someone whose name I won't even attempt to pronounce, which isn't me being an asshole. I literally have so much trouble pronouncing it. It would probably mislead you more than it would help you. I think it's like, I think one of their names is like Alexander spelled with an O, basically. But this game is interesting because it really made a big splash when it came out across the pond. I believe it was a Czech game first, or maybe Polish. I can't remember. But you know, it made a big splash, and people imported it, and it did really well in that format. And then Asmodee brought it across. So this is a game that I almost think of as an older game, and I think a lot of people probably do. However, it's great. It's 2 to 7 players. It's very thematic, and basically one of the players, it's kind of convoluted, but long story short, one of the players is a ghost, and the rest of the players are basically paranormal investigators trying to solve a mystery, and they're trying to solve that mystery with like Dixit-like art cards that they're conveying as clues. So I might show you a picture of like a weird skeleton man holding an apple on like a gray landscape with like a dark spooky tree in the distance, and you're gonna have to look at that, and then you have like a set of murder weapons in front of you, and you're gonna go, which of these murder weapons is most exemplified by a spooky skeleton man holding an apple? Is it a frying pan or a rope? I don't know. And it's cooperative. You're all working together, kind of talking about it. The Asmodee version added these sort of things where you're almost like wagering on how likely someone else is to be correct, and that helps you in the end game where you all have to solve one big mystery together. And
that was a really weird addition. That
it's very smart,
because a lot of times you'd get in a space where you're like, I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. but that addition, agency to make a good decision at that point where it's like we all have no idea. That's cool. It'll help us in the end game that we're all so certain that we know nothing.
Yeah, and that game is pretty. It does a good job of sort of feeling fresh, and everybody at the room can talk. It's a cooperative game where nobody has the answers. It's impossible to quarterback, and it feels like a unique thing. We played it with my mother-in-law on Christmas, who is not a gamer by any means. And she had a blast with it. She wanted to play it multiple times. She had a really good time. She wasn't confused by it in the least. And was also, and granted, she's my mother-in-law. My wife and I both are really into board games. She's played many board games at Christmases where we force her to play games. And this is probably the first one where she was sort of blown away by the mechanics and like understood how unique and cool it was. Like it jumped out at her, like where she was going like, oh, wow, like I never would have considered something like this could be a game, which kind of adds a little bit extra sizzle. It's very cool. I love that game.
Cool. All right. Well, we're in my top four, and I haven't had Orléans, Blood Rage, or Codenames yet.
I'm feeling good about two of those.
Yeah. All right. So my number 4 game is technically from 2014, but basically came out in 2015, and it was on Tom Vassel's list. So I'm going to put it here, and it is Roll for the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I actually didn't have it on my list, and then I saw Tom's, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll lie too. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
But it is a update, dice version, something of Race for the Galaxy, which is one of my all-time favorite games. And it incorporates dice, and it does a really good job of, the dice aren't for luck, they're for kind of building strategy, so that you can't kind of see too far ahead. But I've never felt like, maybe a little bit, but not usually, like I just got screwed by the dice, like I got a bad roll. There's so many ways to mitigate the dice and things like that. That's very smart. One of the huge weaknesses with Race for the Galaxy is the iconography is just impossible. Like it is almost like learning another language to learn that game and teach that game. And so many people get turned off before they ever play it. Roll for the Galaxy has a little bit of that problem, but not nearly as much. So it's way easier to kind of like get people to play it because you're only learning a couple icons and things move in a kind of more logical way where it doesn't feel quite so herky-jerky from the get-go. I love this game. I think it's great. It's a blast.
It's very cool. I think it's pretty to look at. I feel like the dice feel nice in your hands. It has that cool thing where you're kind of, it's like deck building, but with dice, like it's a bag building game or, dice building game where you're kind of creating this sort of engine kind of. But, dice add a little flavor of like it does. Sometimes it works better than other times. It's really cool. I like that game a lot. And if I had known it came out in 2015, I might have thought that would be in your top 3.
Well, you were right, though. It wasn't on my top 3.
That's true. But I would have been wronger.
You would have been more wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like that game, because it came out really early, I don't have quite as much passion and energy about, even though it's really good. I know that I kind of like, yeah, that's good. But obviously it's my number 4, so it's really good because I only like really good games. So my number 3, you guessed, would be Blood Rage.
Yes.
And my number 3 is Codenames.
Fuck.
So you can only be a little bit less angry that it wasn't higher.
That's true.
Because you're the only person on Earth that doesn't like Codenames.
That's true. Should I talk about that a little bit without going off on a tangent?
Sure, yeah. No, I think it's an interesting perspective because so it just has such uniform love.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're incorrect with your... you don't even dislike it. You just don't like it as much as everyone else. Yeah.
I would put it probably in my top 10. Granted, I didn't play that many games this year, but I liked the game. I have a weird relationship with Codenames because I feel like Codenames is a game that has some interesting mechanics. It's designed by a beloved designer, and I feel like it gets a little bit of bump where people are saying they're having a little more fun than I witness. But without any of that dumb hipster mind reading bullshit that I'm saying right there, my actual problem with the game is it feels like a party game in a lot of ways, where it's this word guessing game, sort of like Taboo or Pictionary or any of these traditional games where you're sitting there trying to like guess the word that the person is trying to make you guess. But it feels like a sort of more methodical. The mechanics are pushing you to be a little more methodical, a little more slower paced, a little more precise. The game punishes you a little bit if you just kind of willy-nilly guess crazy things, which for some people's personalities is great. But for me, it makes me feel often like I'm playing a slightly more dour, serious version of a party game that isn't that interesting to me. Like it's kind of like if you took Taboo and went like, okay, now let's all like play this game. But if somebody guesses the wrong word, the round is fucking over and you goofed it real bad. So don't say the wrong word. And also you don't make a facial expression, and there's the sand timer and you can flip it, which is funny, but also maybe just you being an asshole. Like
that I love that about this game. So in the box, I think just to charge you more money, basically, because it's only cards, they include a sand timer.
Mm-hmm.
And the rules of the game basically go like, here's a sand timer. You don't need to use it. There's no reason to. But if you do use it, if somebody's being slow, you can just flip the timer and then that counts. But they're probably going to flip it on you. So I don't know. Like, it's like, feel free if you want to, but you don't need to. It's just, here you go.
Yeah. There's some other mechanics in that game that are, I don't even know if these are true, but they talked about them on the Tuesday Night Games podcast. I'll direct you to their, I think it was episode 1 or 2. Where they talked about it, where it was literally stuff where I was going like, that's in that game? What a weird thing to have in that game. But regardless of any of that, it is a good game. I'm happy to have it on our top 10 list. Chris, what is it?
It is basically, there's an array of 25 cards in front of you. And somebody on a previous thing, I think a news thing, I gave examples of the words that would be on the cards. And they were like, thanks for giving us examples of what words are. It's like, you idiot. They are specific types of words. They aren't like anti-disestablishmentarianism or dysentery, right? Like they're like apple or car or field.
Yeah.
And so they are, you have an array and it's 25 words, right? In a 5x5 grid. You play on teams against each other. Generally, there's like a 2-player variant, blah, blah. But the way I think it's best is kind of with the largest group, maybe 8 people, which would be 3 people on each of the guessing teams, and then 1 person who is the person giving you clues. The person giving you clues has a card on it that shows which of the 25 cards in front of them they're trying to make you guess, right? So like 7 of them will be red, and I'm trying to get you to guess the 7 red ones. And then 7 or 8 of them will be blue, and they're trying to get you to guess the blue ones. And then they're neutral ones, which nobody's trying to get anybody to guess, but it's also not a big deal if your team accidentally guesses that because it's not helping the other team. And then there's 1 assassin. And if your team ever guesses that card, you lose. You've lost the game. And so you give a 1-word clue, and then it's followed by a number. So I might say hockey 2, which then means that there are 2 words here that relate to the word hockey. And so you go like, okay, fields. And I'm like, yes, field hockey. And they go, stick. And I was like, yes, hockey stick. But say the word ice was out there and it was the other team's. Hockey would not be a good clue to then give if I'm trying to get you to guess those 2, because somebody would probably guess ice over maybe stick or field. Mm-hmm. So it's that weird thing where you're trying to get people to guess, but they can't guess willy-nilly. I had a game one time where bug and fly were both out there, but bug was the assassin. So like, how do I get you to guess fly without bug? So then I can't go like an insect route or whatever. And another time there was both Greece and Rome out there, but Rome was the assassin. So I have to get you to guess Greece, but I can't give you anything that would ever make you guess Rome. And so you go back and forth until a team has guessed all of the things that they're supposed to guess. It's very, very simple. It's a ton of fun. The reason it's so high on my list is I've played this with my in-laws at Thanksgiving. I played this with my family at Christmas. I can take it out anywhere on any gaming group with any number of people, and it's a hit. And it's always worked for me. It's a game that we play over and over and over. It's a game that if you've never been the person giving the clue, it seems very easy and it seems like they're doing a very bad job. And then suddenly it's your turn to give the clue and you're like, oh, I have I just have 25 words in front of me. I have no idea what I'm doing. But yeah, really good, simple, fun, solid game that I imagine I will play from here to forever in the right settings.
Did you have a good experience playing with your in-laws and all that? Everybody dug it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
It's a thing where, actually, funny story. So one of the rules in the game, because you're discussing with your team what you should guess, so it needed to make it clear when you make a guess, because you might go like, okay, I think it's field, but that can't count, because what if you're saying that to another person? So the rule is when you touch a card, that's the guess, it's over, right? Until you touch a card, you haven't made a guess. And so we were playing with my in-laws, and I have a grandfather-in-law. He's like 82 years old. He's old. He's still totally there. He's a really cool dude, but he's like hard of hearing and he's old. And so he was on the team, and they had made it, because already like twice he had like almost touched the card. And I'm like, no, don't touch the card. And he's like, okay, I'm sorry. And so he was just kind of quietly sitting there on like our second or third game, and he goes like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to touch this card. And it was like wrong. And everyone's like, no. He's like, no, I accidentally spit on it. I'm going to wipe it off. And it turns out my brother-in-law is, I think he's unbelievably good at giving clues. I think he did like 3 rounds and we got it. It was like something 4, something 3, something 1. And it was like, well, they're all super clear. Yeah. But yeah, I had an absolute blast with it. It's a game that every time I take it out, because you know, my family and my extended family knows that I'm into board games, and that, you know, they'll be like, we should play something, and it's kind of hard to play a thing that I actually want to play, that's also they'll like, that, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so this, I could take this year and just be like this, and they go like, wow, this is great. And it's like, yeah, I think it's good.
This is probably, you know, this is one of those interesting things, because games are a unique art form, and that they're so predicated on what your group of friends is like, right? Mm-hmm. That like I've played only sort of in mixed kind of cons things, and it's probably colored my experiences with the game weirdly. Like the first time I played, I was trying, like all of my words were kind of grouped up, and I was just trying to like get my team to realize that it was a zone they were looking for. Like I wasn't as interested in getting them to pick the exact words, but I wanted to like in 3 turns have them realize like, oh, it's all of this. So I was trying to think of words that just, and there were some words that weren't mine in that corner of the board, but there was nothing that wasn't. So it was just like, get all these words, and it did not work out, which is fine. But it was like, it was a whole hoodoo. We talked about it on a past podcast, so I won't go into details. And then on a later time I played, I did pretty well, just kind of playing the standard way that people, I think, typically play. And that's all fine. But then, like, one of the rounds, one of the people playing's kid was giving the clues. And it was a prolonged experience of watching a person struggle with like feeling like an idiot for a prolonged period of time, where I'm watching this like 14-year-old, you know, who already 14-year-olds hate themselves, kind of standing there and realizing that they were not having as much fun as they thought they were going to have, but like not wanting to back out of it, and kind of going like, this 3. And then everybody like just scratching their heads like, what the fuck is this person talking about? That game's cool though. That's really cool. A lot of shavadel. Probably has a good rule book.
A lot of shavadel. That's a pretty funny rule book.
Guy writes good rule books.
He does. All right. So my number 2 game of the year, you guessed would be Codenames, but you were wrong.
Mm-hmm. So that would make the new guess Blood Rage.
That would make it Blood Rage. But my number 2 game is Blood Rage.
Yeah, it is.
So cool mini or not, man, that company is interesting. Yeah. I don't particularly like Zombicide. Generally, I'm not as drawn to minis on a board game, as I've already said. Again, I don't hate those games. I'm happy to play them if people want to play them. It's not what I'm going to bring to the table and suggest we should play. So last year, we said Dogs of War was our game of the year, and we've had more than anything else, more than any other game or anything we've ever said we liked, people come up to us and go like, man, thanks for telling us about Dogs of War, because nobody played it. And it's really, really, really good. And that was shocking to me because, you know, I wasn't interested because it was Cool Mini or Not, and I thought I knew what they did. And then at Gen Con, the Grizzled, it was just like, what are they doing? Like, you're making this game? All right. And so that was super surprising. And that was kind of the game. It wasn't necessarily my favorite game that I left from Gen Con, but it was definitely like the game I was talking about the most to people and kind of evangelizing the most. And then this year at BGGCon, I played Blood Rage, and I thought I wasn't going to like it because I thought I knew what it was. I don't like direct conflict in games. I don't like a lot of that stuff, and I absolutely loved it, and it is very interesting. It's got great minis, got a great board, and it's basically a drafting game. It's kind of like Seven Wonders plus a board where you're drafting your actions that you're going to take throughout the game. And the conflict is handled so well. I really, really like it, where very rarely does somebody like attack you. Basically, the combat is like, I'm going to go pillage this thing. Does anyone want to try to stop me? So you usually get to choose whether or not you enter battles and when you enter battles, which I really, really liked. It's way less kind of like in your face, haha, I screwed you. And dying is not a bad thing in the game at all because you're Vikings and you want to go to Valhalla. So a very dominant strategy in the game is just dying a lot. Which
you have to almost be vigilant about not letting one person collect all the cards that give you points for dying,
right?
Or else it's like they're on a good path to victory,
right? Which is also interesting because that just means there's a person entering battles that just doesn't want to win. And sometimes
glory.
Yeah, they'll accidentally win and they're like mad about it, which is really cool. It's just such an interesting game. I really like introducing people to it. And I totally love really good miniatures. I love games that look like that. You can summon like monsters. It's kind of like why I'm blanking on the name.
Kemet.
Yes,
Kemet.
Where you get to summon cool monsters, even though that's actually like a very, very kind of tight Euro-y game that handles conflict interestingly. So I like playing with toys too. It's just I don't like dice screwing me, so that kind of knocks out a lot of those games for me.
Yeah, I really like this game. It's a game I definitely paid no attention to. Full disclosure, Cool Mini or Not, if you happen to watch this, if you're doing any market research, it's because the game was called Blood Rage and its logo looked like a heavy metal album. I know that will sell copies to some people, but if you're specifically trying to sell copies to me, I don't buy things called Blood Rage. But it turns out it's great. Chris showed it to me. I was super impressed with it and so was Nikki. I would say it would make both Nikki and I's top threes if we were to make a top three. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's
it's like, I mean, if this game was about making an awesome metal band, I'd be all about it.
Yes.
A game about like Viking warfare, it's like, oh. And also Blood Rage, like the crow, nothing to do with anything. The font is like once you open the board, it all looks right, but Blood Rage really has nothing to, it's not like when you draw blood, you get more power or anything like that.
And I should be clear, we're not knocking the designer or anything. I'm sure that they did exactly what they set out to do. It's just Chris and I are two bearded hipster douchebags who turned our nose up at a metal-looking thing with like kind of weird. But the game, we were really impressed by it. We really liked it, and it sits in this cool space that I think Cool Mini or Not. Like hybrid games have existed for a long time where people will take Euro games and sort of thematic games or Ameritrash games, whatever you want to call them, take those two ideas and start to like make them live together. And I feel like those guys are getting better at picking the games that do it best, if that makes any sense. I haven't played every game under the sun, but that game, Argent the Consortium was a game that did that pretty well, actually, from a few years ago. And there's been plenty, but for some reason, the last 2 years now, like my favorite Euro game I've played has had rad miniatures and cool looking pieces and cool art and a wild theme. And it's been like, oh, it's because these guys have decided to like make them not just sort of brown games with wooden cubes. Not that I hate wooden cubes. If the game's good, it doesn't matter. But it's kind of neat to like get to have the same things that you would have in like a Dice Fest.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of that is I think a lot of maybe designers in previous years, up until a couple of years ago, were kind of taking it from the Eurogame route and then putting theme and stuff onto Eurogames, where I think they're doing it the opposite direction, where they're coming at it from like the highly thematic Ameritrash route and then putting mechanics on. It's just like, we're going to have rad minis, they're going to do this, and it's going to work this way, and it's going to be a drafting game. And it's exciting, it's, people say we're in the golden age of board games, and I have no disagreement with that. And it's exciting to kind of see all this stuff mesh together in new and interesting ways. And it's good.
To get kind of boring, these guys licensed this. Is this a Guillotine Games game?
Yeah, they do a lot of that. I think that's the French company that they license a lot of the stuff from.
Like that immediately. Their other game I'm seeing on here is called The Others, and it looks like it has a lot of expansions. But that immediately makes me want to check out other stuff developed by those guys.
Yeah. It's like an update of a previous Eric Lang design that came out and didn't really have a big hit, and it was called like maybe like Vikings or something. Not actually Vikings, but I think it related
Marvel
to Vikings.
Dice Duels.
Yeah, and so they updated it, and I it's that polish and marketing and stuff that I guess I've never played the other game, so I have no idea if it was as good. But clearly the other games didn't make as big a splash as this is. So yeah, it's good.
Cool.
All right.
Dig it. That's that Dark Horse.
Yeah.
I don't have a game. I was going to pick a game that I wish was on the list, but it isn't. But I don't really have one. I feel pretty good about that list.
Yeah.
I haven't played as many games as Chris, so I can't think of one that
What about
I
Dark
liked.
Moon?
Dark Moon is my pick. Honorable mention. I like Dark Moon a lot. I love social games. I went through a phase where I was really into Euro games, and lately I've been going through a phase where I really am into social games. And that game does an interesting thing. It's kind of like Dead of Winter or Battlestar Galactica. In fact, it's so much like Battlestar Galactica, it's actually was originally a fan hack of Battlestar Galactica to make the game way, 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 way shorter. And essentially the gimmick of it is it's basically based on the movie The Thing, essentially, where you are a group of people trapped in a science facility, and one or maybe two of you is an alien thing that is corrupting people and killing them and sort of wrecking the station around you. You're not sure who's doing it. It's all done through dice, and they have these pretty cool dice that are pretty smartly handled that you use to, like, you basically bid dice for solving problems, but the dice have both good numbers and bad numbers on them, and you roll them behind a screen, and then you choose how many you're going to donate, but you have to donate some. And so it's very easy to look suspicious when you're screwing over the group because you rolled all your dice behind the screen and all you got were -3s. And you're like, sorry guys, this is all I have. But it's not entirely up in the air and flippant like sometimes hit and roll games can be. Like there's a layer of deduction there that I think can sometimes get lost in games like Werewolf and stuff, which I also love. It's very cool, and the thing that's coolest about it is that it's short. You can pretty easily it gets pretty long with like 7 players. I think it supports 7 or 8 players. I can't remember. We've played pretty big games, and we've played some pretty big games, but they lasted maybe an hour or so. But on average, it takes 45 minutes or less to play like a normal sized game of it. And you get that same feeling that you get from a lot of those games. The only knock I would have against it is just like any of those games, some people just, if the wrong person is the traitor, that person can have a really hard time because they're operating under slightly different rules from everybody else at the table. So it requires maybe a level of sophistication with the rules of a game to make it as fun as it can be. But it's cool. I like it a lot. We played once with a bunch of friends, and Chris's wife acted like a goddamn insane person, and everybody thought she was the killer, but it turns out she's just fucking weird.
Oh, that's right. It was Nikki. Because in my mind, literally, I remembered back that she was
not the alien.
Like, Nikki played her. Like
Nikki played her really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nikki's really good at those games, and it's like the drunk Nikki werewolf, where one time Nikki acted like she was just really drunk in werewolf, and we just dismissed her because she was just being stupid, and then it turns out she was just the werewolf and like completely played all of us.
She was like making a show of like how many drinks she was having. This is of course while she was pregnant, and But that game, Dark Moon, is really cool. Highly recommend it if you're looking for a game like that. It doesn't have as much of the story ties as a game like Dead of Winter, and there is an argument to be made. I certainly considered this when I bought it, that if you already own a game like Dead of Winter, and your group already likes a game like Dead of Winter or Battlestar Galactica, that maybe you're just buying another game that does the same thing, but maybe without all the hooks that make you want to play those types of games. However, its shortened plate time really gets it to the table more often than you'd think. It's something that feels, when you're explaining it, it just feels like it's impossible for that game to be as short as it is, which is pretty neat. Like almost always like, all right, here we go. Going to play a 3-hour board game. And always it's like, oh, that wrapped up and felt nice and has a nice like rising tension. Like it tells a little bit of a story. Cool game. That's my honorable mention.
All right. And my number one, you were correct. It is Orléans or or whatever the hell. It's got an accent somewhere. This game, I love Dominion. It's one of my favorite games. And I have wanted a bag builder to do a thing that I liked for so long. And it's like, I just want a board with the deck builder. I got trains and I was sure that was going to be it. And I hated trains. I got, what was that one that Asmodee put out last year? That was like cubes in a bag. I have it on this shelf. Hyperborea.
Is that it?
Huh? Yeah, Hyperborea.
I thought you were going to say, did it?
We got it at the same time, but it's different. But didn't work for me. I saw Orléans. I kickstarted it, the deluxe version, and I was just so sure that I was going to be disappointed by it. I was just setting myself up because the description, I was like, well, this is going to be my favorite game. This is it. And so I was just so sure that I was going to play it and it wasn't going to work and I was going to hate it and all that stuff. And that did not happen. And I love that game. It's too soon. I've only played it 5 times, which I don't think I played it until like December. So I played it 5 times this month, or maybe November, but in recent past. And it's in the running for certainly my top 10, maybe my top 5. I don't know what it's going to knock out because I so love all the games in my top 5 right now. But it could get there. And basically it's a bag building game where you get different workers that do different things that then you combine to give you different actions. There's also a board that you're traveling around getting different resources. It is so good. I like it so much. It's so good that it's all I want to play, where it like is hard for me at a game night to play something other than that right now, which is saying a ton because I normally want to play the new thing. Also the deluxe components in Tasty Minstrels Deluxe are so nice. It has all sorts of wood. It's so good. And I can't wait. The expansion that came out in Germany did a crazy thing. And instead of just adding to it, which they totally could have, they made 3 solo variants, a 2-player variant, and they made it into a co-op game.
Weird.
Yeah. And it looks really good. The co-op looks really, really good, and I'm really excited about it because I'm prone to quarterbacking. So games like Pandemic are really hard for me to sit there and watch somebody make a less than optimal move. That's why I like Pandemic to Cure a lot, because the dice prevent somebody from going like, okay, and 5 turns from now we'll do this. And Orléans does that because you're building from the bag. So, you can only predict a little bit in the future and strategize for a little bit in the future. And you have to kind of roll with the punches. And also each person has like a solo goal that they need to achieve in addition to the large goal that everyone's contributing to. So there's a little bit of push-pull there. So I haven't played any of the expansions yet, but I was like, because when I was playing the game, I was like, man, you could expand this in so many directions. And I did not expect the expansions to be solo variant, 2-player variant, and co-op.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited about that. I just love this game. It's so good. Yeah.
What's interesting about this is it's our #1 game, and neither Nikki and I have played it yet. We just had a baby. It's hard for us to get to game nights. Chris lives very far away from me, and the people on our regular game night moved to LA. So it's hard to have a game nights these days for me. And I haven't played our #1 pick, and I would say that maybe that puts an asterisk next to it. But thinking about it, last year, Nikki, Chris, and I did the voting. Nikki and Chris have very similar taste in Euro games, and Nikki likes Euro games a lot more than I do. And I still quite like Euro games and have similar taste to Chris. So I bet you it still probably would have been #1 if what Chris is saying is true.
Yeah.
Especially because you invoked Dominion, and Chris and I are the only 2 people left on Earth, I think, who staunchly believe Dominion is better than all other deck building.
Yeah. It's so much better, though. It's not even a competition. It's just so clearly the best of them.
People keep adding things that make it technically worse, and then they act like it's special, and then 2 years from now, we ain't talking about it no more.
What if instead of actually being able to build a competent strategy and work towards a goal, we added random cards that you had to just have random all the time, and then you could maybe buy them if you wanted? It's like, why? It's like, well, Dominion, there's a dominant strategy. It's like, yeah, there's a dominant strategy for that one set of combinations, and there are a billion combinations. Also, if you think there's a dominant strategy, you don't play with those cards. There's like 500 cards. Not that many.
Also, the tempo of Dominion, so good. So good. That game just has such a nice, airy rhythm.
And we can
whatever. Leave your comments about how Dominion... That's true. It's also a beer and pretzels game for us, which is cool. But you can leave your comments about how we're stupid and you hate Dominion and Trains is actually fun and not boring below. And I'll just delete them. Because I'm moderator on the account, so I'll just say you said something racist.
But yeah,
cool.
I'm excited to show it to you guys. It's so good. Orléans also, it's my top game, so whatever, I can talk about it as long as I want.
Yeah.
But it does a thing where the first time you play it, you feel like you're doing way better than the second time you play it, because the first time you play it, it's very rewarding. Like, it's not punishing when you have no idea what you're doing. When you're just like, yeah, oh, this is great. Oh, I can get this guy? Great. Oh, and I can go there, and that gives me points? Awesome.
Ash is kind of like that.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, this is great. And then the second time I played it, I was like, I'm going to do this. And suddenly it is like brutal and punishing and like so tight. And it's just like, if I do this and then this, but then I can't do this, which that was very interesting, because normally when you don't know what you're doing in a game, it seems way more difficult than it actually is. Where this one, when you don't know what you're doing, it just seems like pleasant. Like, oh, great, I'll do this and this. I mean, Dominion's a little bit the same way, where it's like you're really bad at it, but it's like, I can buy this and this does this. That's great. And also, every single time I've played Orléans, I set out at the beginning of the game, I was like, I am going to do this. And halfway through the game, I changed my strategy because of what the game was pushing me towards, which that's really good for a game, because it means that you don't just go like, well, this is a good strategy, I'll do this every time.
Yeah.
You have to roll with the punches of the game. And it's not that like you couldn't do that thing. It's just that other opportunities present themselves based on the way other people are playing the game. And that's great. I love it. It's great. I love it.
And our award for game we didn't play that probably would have made this list goes to Pandemic Legacy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Any others that we didn't play that deserve a nod?
I feel like I probably would have had Food Chain Magnet on this list. I feel like I don't have my list in front of me of the ones I didn't get to play that I probably would be on the list. But I mean, there's no way Pandemic Legacy wouldn't be on this list with what it's doing for games.
You played Time Stories, right?
I did. Time Stories is weird because I think it's really good, but there are things outside of the game that keep it off my list, where the price point is absurd for what it is. And I think that if they keep releasing expansions, which I imagine they will, there's going to be some really, really, really good ones. And it's really interesting because that's a lot like Pandemic Legacy, where you're kind of looking at games instead of imitating video games, almost imitating TV shows now, where they're telling a story in a concise way that, because Time Stories is almost like going to a movie, where Pandemic Legacy is like watching a season of TV. Time Stories like tells you a story in a way, and then you can't really replay it. Actually, you really can't replay it. You could sit through it again with new people, but you would have to just keep your mouth shut the whole time. I love that they're doing different artists and different designers for each expansion. I think that's awesome. It's got some really cool ideas. It's a game I would love to like design an expansion for, but in and of itself, it just wasn't. The first time you go through a loop, or the first 2 times or 3 times you go through a loop, there are these fun little like sparks and these fun little clues, and you follow these paths, and it has all this discovery and stuff. But then when you're trying to beat it, you're just trying to remember things. It's just a game of memory.
Yeah.
And then it's like memory, and if you don't play it well enough, you have to do it again. So I don't know the solution to that. I bet a designer doing an expansion will have a solution to that, but there are highs and lows in that game, and the highs are really high and the lows are pretty low. And it's too expensive for what it is.
We discussed a bit about this back when we played, you weren't in the game, but when we played Witness the first time, about how, oh, well, it kind of sucks because each, like, there's chapters for different mysteries. And it's like, oh, well, it sucks you can't, like, once you've played one, you can't play it again because you know the solution to the mystery. But it turns out the questions that you need to answer to solve the mystery are so specific. Like, if a train leaves at midnight going 365 miles per hour and a man wearing polka dot shoes is killed in the 3rd car of the train, blah, 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 you know, like these really specific things that the game of telephone, weird, like we've replayed ones that we've played before, and unless you're like a freak who can memorize things perfectly, it was fun still, but that's a different
Time
type
Stories is almost like if you had read a book, rereading the book.
Yeah.
Like, you could wait long enough that you would forget some stuff, but you'd still kind of know the major stuff that mattered.
Right. Yeah.
And but again, how entitled are we as gamers that a thing that costs $60 we expect to entertain us for as long as we want it to entertain us, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you bought a video game for $60 and you gave you 10 hours of entertainment, a lot of people are happy with that, right?
Right.
And then if you divide that by the amount of people that are being entertained by that, it's still a value. And also, there aren't a lot of games that I play more than 5 or 10 times, right? There's only at most maybe 10 games a year that I'm going to be playing 2 years from now on a regular basis, right?
Right.
It's pretty rare. So it's also putting it at a standard that no other game, I don't judge other games by, right?
Which, by the way, if you're watching this and you don't make a show about board games, don't be like us. Just play the games you own more often.
Yeah.
You get so much out of it, and it's so hard to do when you have to feel like you need to be current on this stuff, but it's actually real dumb. Yeah. I look at so many games I own, I'm like, I love that game. Why don't I play that game more? It's like, oh, right, because I have to do my homework every time I sit down, and like I never get to see the, like, you know, 5th layer of, like, I've been playing this game for 20 years, I'm amazing at it, you know.
Also, we just did this with Tikal, where I had never played Tikal, and I went to Belize, which Tikal's right by Belize, and was going to Mayan Ruins. I was like, I'm gonna play Tikal, and Donald had it, and he had played it, and go and play those, like, the great games that came out 10, 15 years ago that you never played because
those are still
you didn't
the best
play games
games
15 years ago. They're really good. They're really good. Board games are also weird because it's like with movies, you don't go like, I'm not going to see The Godfather. I'm sure it was good 30, 40 years ago, but who cares now, right? Like, that's insane. Like,
yeah.
So, and it's not even like technology didn't change for games either, where it's like a video game that came out 20 years ago. You have to be okay with it not looking as good as a video game today and being clunkier because technology. Board games didn't. Like, yeah, we're a little bit better and can make a little bit, like, nicer pieces, but they're the same thing. So
yeah,
that's a thing I want to, like, I want to do a podcast where we just go, like, it's kind of an arbitrary-ish thing, like the Spiel des Jahres, because it's like Family Game or whatever. But just go like, start at the beginning and play all the Spiel des Jahres winners because it's like a
Yeah.
benchmark, or like
Or what
just
about
go
the Kenner Spiel or something?
yeah. And like I think that would be really cool. And it's like there are tons of those games that I mean all the time I'll play one of those and go like, this is really good.
Yeah, it almost always happens when I go like, it's like when I first played Brass. It's like for years I was just like I'd heard people say Brass was good, and I go like, yeah, but that's a dumb old Brown game. I don't want to play that. The art is boring. And then I finally got around to play it. That's like one of my 5 favorite games I've ever played. Like I think Brass is spectacular, and you know, board games hold up better than most media in a weird way. That yeah, it's like you're saying, like they didn't used to be black and white. They didn't used to not have sound. They didn't, you know what I mean? There's like almost no excuses to make for like a good game. And I think a lot of the times we watch these top 10 lists, and when we go to the game store, we're drawn to that new hot thing. But if you can go back and play some of those classics, like I've never played Tigris and Euphrates. I've never played Stone Age. I've never played a lot of these games that I know I would like. Like I'm 100% confident I would like those games. And I've just never played them because whenever I go to the game store and buy a game, I'm like, well, I'm going to buy this new game that I'm going to play once and never play again. So that's our piece of advice for 2015.
All right. Well, that's the list. I hope you
Chris,
liked the list. I hope it was helpful. What's that?
Chris, best artwork. Go.
Oh man, I don't know. Best art, the Grizzled.
Okay,
that's a safe one.
I'm gonna give it to
or maybe Discoveries with Vincent Dutrait or Dutriat or whatever. I say it all the time how much I absolutely love him as a board game artist, and I think he's so far and away the best. But the Grizzled ads, it's cool. They did the thing with it, and I like that.
I'm going to throw it out to, what's it called? The game, it's right behind you next to Alien Frontiers, actually. I can't remember what it's called.
Above and Below?
Yes.
Yeah, Ryan Locat. Man, okay, so as far as, man, we're just tangenting.
I like it. Who cares?
As far as one-man teams, there are very few in board games that, there are a lot of like designer publishers or things like that. But as a designer, publisher, artist, like everything, like the guy that did this artwork also designed the game and also published the game. And he does it time and time again. And it's all the same style. And it's so good. And it's beautiful. This game, funny enough, came out this year. I obviously own it. Haven't gotten to play it yet. Same with the Tricarion, where I kickstarted them and they came late enough that I just haven't gotten a chance to play them yet. So who knows if they would have been on my list. Tricarion very well may have been. This may have been too. I know some people that really like it.
I never played that game. I'm just saying, when you showed me that box, I was like, I like that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. That's the list. So thanks for tuning in. Our show starts in February of this year, season 2. Very exciting. So you should watch it because clearly you watch stuff on the internet. You're an hour and change into some people talking to each other.
We did a screening of an episode of season 2 at BGGCon. A little sneak preview of episode 3. Has Rich Summer in it. And let me tell you, the response was overwhelmingly positive and very, very encouraging. I think people are going to be blown away by season 2. Also, we've gotten a lot of messages of people wondering where the podcast is. So we had a very good, I swear, good, clean plan on getting the podcast ahead of itself by a long stretch of time so that when Nikki had the baby, we could take an appropriate amount of time off, and then the holidays could go by, and we'd be good through January. However, some people dropped out of a podcast session last second, and it was very hard to fill the vacancy with the holidays coming up and stuff. People are traveling. It was tough. And then Nikki had the baby early. So unfortunately, we took an unscheduled break from the podcast. Meanwhile, our other podcast, Houses and Humans, had a devastating technical issue. And I basically have just put it on hiatus because I'm getting a new home recording setup after the holidays. And in order to sort of fix it, it'll be easier for me to do it at home than at the recording studio where I work because it's going to take a lot of time. But after we get all that patched up, I want to bring Houses and Humans back and get back into that full stride. That's very easy for me to record with a baby in my house because it's just me sitting somewhere. And then the Bored with Life D&D podcast, I'm probably going to do a special episode because I've gotten so many messages of people saying they're starting their own games for the first time and asking me for advice on dungeon mastering. I am by no means an expert on dungeon mastering, and I don't want to like position myself as one of those people. But I do have some advice for what I think is helpful if you want to play a game in the style that we play. So I'm probably going to put up a podcast like that. Then hopefully some information that'll help catch people back up on these stories that have lapsed. So yeah, and we have some other fun ideas for the future maybe. So yeah, that's a thing.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much for joining us. And yeah, talk to you later. Like and subscribe, guys. Really means a lot to us.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.